One thing that I will tell you that's different about this one than any of the other calls that I've done in the past, I know that this is kind of a more sensitive topic, and I'm not going to really pull any punches. Don't feel like I'm talking to you explicitly, any one person individually, because I'm not. But the best way to talk about how weight affects the aesthetics of what we're wearing, or what people's expectations, or what their kind of stereotypes, or all of that is when it comes to this, is really to just talk about it and be out and upfront about it. And so maybe your feelings are going to hurt a little bit. Probably not. You guys wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be following me if you were all, super soft snowflakes, so you guys can handle it. But with that said, let me share my screen and we can jump into this. Okay, let's do that and that. Okay, so whether we're talking about dressing based on a particular body weight, we're talking about dressing for any other regard, this hinges on three basic principles. And these are the same things that I teach my clients. I've got quite a few of my clients that are in here. These guys are going to be able to vouch for this. And so I want to make sure that we hit all three of these to be able to drive this point home the right way. So the first one, the easiest one, is just the pure principle of aesthetics. This is how things work according to things like the science of style, pattern, proportion, color, all of these things, how it's basically going to look from the golden ratio and all that other good stuff. The second one has to do with communication. And this is the best way to think about this is kind of in relationship to language, where we have certain things. Clothing has symbols. It represents certain things. And just like language, certain sounds, if you don't speak that language, that symbolism is kind of lost. The same thing happens with our clothing. And so you have to understand what the agreed upon communication is based on where you are in the world, what you do for a living, what your different tribes are, who it is that you interact with, and then also what those signals are that you want to communicate, and also what a lot of those signals are that are kind of expected or stereotypical based on what people's initial impressions of you are. Excuse me. And then the last one, and arguably the most important one, is this idea of self-perception. This is basically when you see yourself, what do you see? Do you like what you see? Are you inspired by what you see? Are you embarrassed by what you see? What's your relationship with yourself, and how do you see yourself? So we're going to tackle all three of these as we go into this. So let's start off by first talking pure aesthetics. Okay, let's look at a really good comparison here between these two. On the left, we have Adam Sandler. You guys know who he is. Obviously not the most sartorially inclined gentleman. And on the right is a really good friend of mine, and actually my strength coach, Matt Reynolds. Now, where I want to hit these from just kind of a pure aesthetics perspective first, and what the differences are, because obviously there's a big difference in how sloppy Adam looks and how awesome Matt looks. There's just a big difference here. And I want to actually explain to you guys what these differences are and why these end up working out the way that they do. Okay, so let's talk about the very first thing. This is going to be fit. All right. Ideally for men, what we want is this idea of like a good V taper. Okay. We want broader shoulders, narrower waist. And so you could think about like being built this way. And this is really kind of the ideal physique that we're after. This is something that is biologically wired into us. This is how we are programmed, because this is the ideal balance between musculature and body fat. This is what's going to signal things like strength and capacity, health. And so not only is this what makes us attractive to women, but this is also what kind of these initial triggers are as far as what makes this look respectable or formidable or in any other way appropriate or masculine to other men. Now, whether we're built that way or not, and I'm going to assume that you're on this call because you're some way away from that ideal. It may be 5 pounds, it may be 105 pounds, it may be somewhere in between all that, but you're on this call because you're somewhere away from that. But that doesn't mean that there aren't ways that we can still play with and signal this idea, even just based on what our clothing is, and even to a large extent what our grooming is. And so I'm going to show you guys how we can do that. All right. Let's start with what the bad examples are with what Adam Sandler's got on here. Okay. Ideally, what we want is we want a shirt, whether it's a t-shirt, a button-up shirt, a dress shirt, anything else. we want it to fit snug in here. We'll do it on Matt. We want it to fit snug in the shoulders. We want it to fit snug in the trap. We want it to fit snug in the biceps, and we want it to fit snug in the upper chest. And then we want a little bit of drape that's down here in the waist and a little bit of drape that's down here in the seat. Now, this is the same whether you're carrying some extra weight, maybe it's in your gut or love handles, maybe it's even down in your seat, your thighs, or even if you're totally built where you're rocking a six-pack and you're absolutely shredded, you want a little bit of drape in your clothing that's going to happen basically right here below the chest. Okay, so let's look at what Sandler's got going on here. We have massive shoulders. Look at how far these come out onto where his deltoids are. Okay, so it makes his shoulders, look at the poor shape on here. These are super droopy. This is the opposite of that V taper that we're after. We got super droopy shoulders here. Next thing is we've got these extra long sleeves. They're also pretty baggy. And so it makes it look like he's got these itty bitty little noodle arms that don't actually fill out his sleeves the way that they're supposed to. And then we lose any sort of shape in here whatsoever. So there's no V taper to this at all. He is just a straight up block up and down. And this is not a little bit of taper or a little bit of drape where maybe we want it to come in a little bit more like this. It's not necessarily like super skin tight, but we're not getting any of that. This just hangs off of him like, I don't know, a freaking tarp or like the ship on or the sail on a pirate ship or something. I don't know what kind of crappy metaphor I can come up with, but this does not hang off of him very well. It looks ridiculous. Okay. So when we get this terrible shape on him. Whereas when we get what Matt has going on here, we get really good definition in the shoulders. Okay. You could see some definition there. We've got it again up here in the traps. You can see it's nice and snug up here in the upper chest. Not necessarily super short in the biceps, but it's still above where the actual crease in his arms are. And then also it's nice and snug in the biceps too. And then lastly, we still get some taper down through here. Not skin tight. We don't have a belly poking out. We don't have anything that is egregious in that regard, but it's also not just hanging off of him like a brick is with Adam Sandler over here. Okay. So now let's move on down to the shorts. Okay. One of the problems that a lot of guys have, a lot of bigger guys have, is we have this kind of skewed proportion where it's almost like an orange on toothpicks, right? Where we get these itty bitty little legs that stick out from the rest of the body. And this is exacerbated when our shorts are both too long, which is where his are. Notice that they not only come to the knee, but they fall below the knee, but then also super baggy, where you look at how little his legs are poking out from underneath those shorts and all of this excess space that's in here. And so again, it gives this perception of I've got all of this extra weight right here. And not only do I have these itty bitty little arms that don't fill out my sleeves, but I also have these itty bitty little legs that don't fill out where my shorts should be. And so it's this weird like bowling ball proportion, which is the exact opposite of that good ideal masculine V taper that we're after. So let's again take a look at where Matt is. Not only are they shorter, where they come above the knee, so that visually elongates the legs and helps balance out visually some of the weight that we're carrying in the midsection, but also what it does is these hug nice and tight. So his legs, when they come out, don't have nearly as much of a difference in there between where the legs are and where the circumference of the shorts are. He actually fills out his shorts really well. And so this shows off the musculature that's been developed. Now, I don't know what kind of shape Adam Sandler is in versus somebody like Matt. I know Matt's super strong. He's got a lot of muscle on him. And so obviously it helps to have more powerful legs. But even if you don't have necessarily super jacked legs or super jacked arms, even if you are carrying more weight on your stomach or in your seat than what you want to, if you can make your stuff fit in a way where, again, it's snug up here in the upper body. So we got shoulders, traps, biceps, upper chest, and then we get more drape down here in the shirt, and then also snug across the seat and the thighs, and then you've got a shorter distance on the shorts. That's your golden ticket to being able to create very good aesthetics, especially when you're carrying some extra weight. Okay. Now, the next thing to pay attention to from this is going to be a color blocking perspective. Okay. Matt, you guys have all heard this idea that that dark colors are very slimming. And this applies here with Matt as well, where because he's got this and he's got these more mature colors of the navy and then the khaki, this is going to help slim him out and elongate him. And then also notice that he doesn't have any socks on. You're not seeing any, he's got no shows. So we're not seeing any visible socks here. So again, what we have is the shorter shorts and the longer legs with the shorter socks. So we get this elongation of the legs. Whereas what Sandler gets is the longer shorts and the higher socks. And so we get this truncation of the legs and it throws off all the proportions there. Okay. So those are kind of the basic rules that you guys are going to want to follow when it comes to how your stuff should fit. Now, again, this is the same whether it's a button-up shirt. Let's say that it's a button-up long sleeve shirt. We still want it to be nice and snug in the arms. We want it to fit where it comes right at the wrist, but we want it to be nice and snug through there. And then we still want a good taper down through the pants. So it's snug in the thighs and then down through the legs. That doesn't mean we go hyper skinny. It doesn't mean it has to look like it's saran wrapped on you or it's been spray painted on you, but we don't want to look like we're trying to hide any excess weight in baggy clothing, because the reality is it doesn't hide any excess weight. In fact, in a lot of ways, it exacerbates it. And then that also moves on to the second component of communication and what that does as well. Okay, so let's move on over to this communication idea. All right. So we're going to stick with the same idea of Adam Sandler. We're going to talk about a few of the communication issues that we have. The first thing that you guys need to understand is if you're carrying anything more than like 15, 20 extra pounds, people will see it regardless of what the clothing is that you're wearing. They will see your man boobs. They will see your belly. They will see your love handles. They will see your bigger thighs. They will see your bigger seat. Whatever it is, people are going to see it. And you cannot wear something that is baggy enough that it will hide it. You can't. Now, the problem is when you try to wear something that's baggy enough to hide it, you compound the problem, because now not only do people have the impression of, oh, this guy has some extra weight. And what's the association that comes with that? He's not as disciplined. He doesn't take as good a care of himself. He's not as fit. He's not as attractive. There's all these negative stereotypes that you guys know exist when you're carrying more weight. And the more you carry, the worse that stereotype gets. So not only do you have that, but then it's compounded with he's in denial about it, or he's so self-conscious about it that he's trying to hide it. And you get also this idea of he's sloppy. He's wearing stuff that's so big and so baggy and so sloppy that not only is he fat, but he's sloppy too. So he doesn't have really anything going for him in that regard. Not only do we have the physical component of it, but we have the discipline and the self-respect component and all of that, that it's all just totally, you get this synergy, this negative synergy of, well, this is why he is. He doesn't take care of himself. He doesn't pay attention to details. None of this matters. And so Sandler has all of this sloppiness that's being associated because of how baggy all of this is. Okay. In addition to this, you can get a lot of this kind of boyishness of, or the sloppiness of, oh, I'm just going to wear a Superman t-shirt. I'm going to wear a graphic t-shirt because I don't care about how I look. So there's the boyishness, the sloppiness, the lack of dignity, the lack of self-respect that's being communicated when you go this route. And this becomes its own problem too, where again, it builds off of that and exacerbates it. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that anything that is not sloppy is good, because we still run into other negative stereotypes and other problems that can get associated with it. So let's look at this gentleman in the center. Now, obviously not sloppy. You can look at, like, his haircut is crisp. His beard trim is really good. His fit is actually pretty dang decent, right? He's got the shorter shorts. He's got these that are a little bit tighter up here, a little bit better fit in the shoulders. Like, this is all pretty dang good from a fit perspective. But here's one of the problems. When it comes to communicating most of the masculine virtues that a lot of us want to be able to communicate, dignity, self-respect, authority, credibility, those types of things, when you're a bigger guy, especially with the world being the way that it is today, most of the time you're not seen that way. You're either seen as sloppy like Adam Sandler, or you're seen as kind of like the cute and cuddly teddy bear kind of guy, or the funny guy, or something else where you're having to overcompensate for your size with your niceness or your jokes or your humor or your sense of, or your personality. And most of the time, this becomes another kind of one-dimensional element where you guys won't be taken as seriously as you want to be. And so a lot of the problems that we're seeing here with him is we get like the cuff shorts that look really boyish. You get this pattern in the shirt that looks really boyish. You get kind of the youthfulness of wearing a short sleeve button-up shirt. And then even the color that's in here with all this. Notice how this is a brighter version as opposed to the darker version that Matt had on in the previous photo. And so all of these things create this idea of he's young, he's boyish, or he's cute and he's cuddly and he's kind of the best friend, or he's the guy that you don't really trust him to do the hard things at work, but he's good for morale and he can kind of keep everybody around. And none of that may actually be true. And you may totally be killing it in every single one of these regards. But the more you make people believe that about you, the more inertia you're creating against you, the more resistance you're creating against you, and the harder time you're going to have. The harder time you're going to have at work, the harder time you're going to have with mutual men, and the harder time you're going to have when it comes to dating or even maintaining respect or sexual attraction or anything with your wife. A lot of married guys fall into this, not because they necessarily do it on purpose, but because they fall into the trap of women like to look cute and bigger guys have a harder time dressing well. And so they let their wives dress them. And so they dress them as cute. And that becomes a problem as well. Now, another problem that we run into with this has to do with this idea of being too serious. Well, it's not too serious, but it's almost like too dorky. I'm sure you guys are familiar with my idea of like the gentle dork, where it's the guy who has no other masculine attributes that are going for him. And so what does he do? He grows a beard and he puts on really refined, kind of formal, classic clothes, because if I can dress up like a masculine man, then I don't have to worry about developing any of these other attributes like self-mastery or strength or courage or these other things that are undermined by a bigger physique. And so if you go too far in this direction, where you're it's almost like the soy guys, like the bug men that you have the beards and they're like geeking out about the latest mystery meat thing that KFC is doing, or what the newest Nintendo Switch drop is that Ocarina of Time is coming out, whatever those kind of associations are. There's this nerdiness that gets associated with too much formality or too much traditionalism in your clothes. And so you have to be able to be wary of that and cognizant of that. And you have to make sure that this doesn't happen. And so a lot of times focusing on things like ties with jeans, or you're doing cardigans, it doesn't work to your advantage, because this kind of like high-low of doing formal with casual stuff ends up again making you look safer, making you look dorkier, making you look like you're not as formidable, or you're not as serious as you actually are and as you want to be. Okay, so enough about the negative. Let's talk about some ways that we can do this that actually make it look good. Okay, so let's move on over to this one. Here are 3 pretty good examples of guys that do this well. Now, I will admit that this first guy over here on the left still looks a little bit too safe, a little bit too kind of nice guy. And a lot of that has more to do with his grooming and his smile and these kind of things. And this may very well just be caught up in this way. But a couple of things that are really good general ideas for you guys to start to take from. There's 2 things that really work here. The more we can bring up the rugged archetype in your aesthetic. So let's think about like you've got a dial here that we've got at a level 10 and then a level 1, and this is your rugged. Okay. If we can get your rugged somewhere up here, and it needs to be congruent with who you are as a man. If you're not as rugged, then you need to keep it on the lower end. Whereas if you are more rugged, then we can turn it up quite a bit. But the more of that physical masculinity we can inject into your aesthetic, the more physically powerful, the more disciplined, the more capable, the more competent you're going to look. So this is where we get a lot of things like we've got the cargos, we've got the bomber jacket, we've got this kind of trucker jacket. These things end up, or even like the flannels that we've got here, these things end up increasing a lot of that rugged. But at the same time, we need to do it the right way. This doesn't mean just go out and buy anything Dickies or anything Carhartt. I want you to notice that these guys still dress in a way that their stuff fits them really, really well. Look at where shoulder seams are right where they should be, right where they should be, right where they should be. Notice that we've got a good taper, but because these guys have bigger legs, they're not hyper skinny, right? And even this guy where he's a little bit bigger, it's a little bit fuller. This is kind of on the skinnier end of the spectrum, right in the middle, and then a little bit on the fuller side. Notice that the length on their stuff is really good. He's going a little bit shorter, but that's because he's going with a little bit trendier of a look. But the length is good, so we're not communicating that sloppiness again. There's a lot of attention here. Notice that we've got good, clean grooming as far as haircuts. And so the fit and everything else is really dialed. The discipline is dialed and turned up by things like grooming and some of these other variables that we can bring in. This guy, notice we get a little bit more rakishness in with this, where we've got the layering, but the more you can bring up the rugged and the more you can bring up the discipline with your grooming, the better your aesthetic is going to be. Now, one of the best ways to do this while still maintaining a good classic refinement is to focus on either classic military stuff. So this is going to be things like bomber jackets, plain dark t-shirts. This will be really even like old workwear stuff like trucker jackets or anything that would have existed in the mid 20th century, but would have been worn by vets that had come home and were still wearing their like field jackets or stuff to this extent. You don't want to do anything that's too contemporary, because then you start to get into this realm of like stolen valor, and your LARPing is being tactical, or LARPing is being in the military, or that you look like you're a construction worker that's out on a site. So you want to go with something that's anything from like the 40s to the 80s, but it's this classic workwear, classic military heritage, but it's ubiquitous enough. It's become part of the general men's wardrobe lexicon, for lack of a better word, that you're used to seeing these. So bomber jackets, flannel shirts, field jackets, cargo pants, when they fit well, those types of things are going to create a really good balance here. So we bring up the rugged and we still keep that refinement without it looking like it's too costumey. Now, one other thing to make you guys aware of that a lot of guys can get into trouble with is, and this kind of reinforces that same previous idea, is we want some level of, you need to be current and contemporary. But yeah, peacoats are a really good example of that, Adam. That's another really good way to pull that off. Okay, so you want something that's going to be current and contemporary, but you also don't want to ride too hard on trends, because again, what being too trendy does is it makes you, there's a couple things. One, it can make you look like you're self-conscious about your size instead of embracing it and leaning into it. It can make you look vapid and shallow and vacuous. In a lot of ways, it can make you look, again, kind of cuddly and safe and more in that regard. So let's take a look at these two, where we've got this like weird hipster haircut with his bangs that, I don't know, it looks like some feminist chick did that to him. We've got the turtleneck with the necklace on the outside. We've got these super skinny pants that are tucked into the boots. And then the really stark contrasting of the brown against the black. All of this reads really, really trendy and makes him look soft and squishy, and again, kills that idea of credibility, authority, and masculinity. Whereas this gentleman over here, arguably wearing something very similar, but because he's keeping it less trendy with colors, he's keeping it less trendy with fits. He's not going hyper skinny on anything. And again, we've still got black on black, but we've got less of the contrast. This guy's killing it. He looks really, really good. Still a well-groomed beard, but we're not getting into weird haircut territory. And so this is where this all starts to play out. Okay, so that's where the communication focus comes in. And the last thing to pay attention to is the self-perception aspect of it. All right. And where this gets so crucial is, in fact, I want to know from you guys. Let's stop the share so that we can look at this a little bit differently, and I want to be able to see the chat better. I want you to put, okay, how do I want to ask this? If you feel like being a big guy is a core component of your identity, like I'm the big guy, I want you to put a 1 in the chat. If you don't see that as a main part of your identity, whether that's your self-perception or the way that other people see you, I want you to put a 2 in there. So I want to see kind of more who I'm working with. Okay, a couple good balances there. Good. I'm glad we have as many 2s as we do, because what I don't want you guys to do, and this is the same thing whether you're a skinny guy, it's honestly the same thing even if you're a jack guy. Your physique should be a component of who you are. It should be how you see yourself, but it shouldn't be your core identity. And for big guys or skinny guys, kind of when you've moved too far on either end of the spectrum, a lot of times you get in trouble because you feel like it's this innate, immutable, this is who I am. And so I have to, rather than work on it, I have to compensate or even overcompensate for it by doing other things. I have to overcompensate for it by being the funny guy, or I have to do it by being the smart guy, or the trivia guy, or the rich guy, or the whoever other guy. And I want you to be multidimensional. You should be multidimensional. When you think about the hero's journey, or you think about a film that you're watching, and the main character, the most compelling characters are the multidimensional ones. They go through these arcs of growth and challenge and all of this. And the side characters are the one-dimensional ones. And guys who just identify themselves solely by their physique, whether I'm just muscular or I'm just skinny or I'm just overweight, you're a side character. And so I want you to see yourself as more than that. And so when you start to dress in a way that isn't entirely dependent on just what your physique is, it's not, I'm going to wear whatever is comfortable and whatever is going to hide my man boobs, because that's the only thing that matters. But I'm going to think about the things that I want to signal to other people, or I want to signal to myself. And you start dressing in a way that changes that, then you start to see yourself as more than just whatever your build is, or more than just whatever your physique is. And what's really cool is, as you do that, and as you start to shed whatever that idea of what your identity is, then it also makes it really easy to be able to start to change the way that you're built. It makes it easier to stay disciplined in the gym. It makes it easier to stay disciplined on your diet. It makes it easier to stay disciplined in other arenas, because when you see yourself in the mirror, you see somebody who looks more disciplined. You see somebody who looks more put together. You see somebody who looks multidimensional. That's what I want you guys to see in the mirror. That's how I want you to be able to define yourselves, as somebody who has more going for them. Because again, when you see that, you start to believe that. And when you start to believe it, it becomes easier to start to act that way. And then as you act that way, then you reinforce it and you believe it more, and it goes on and on and on. This is one of the reasons why it's so crucial, why so many of my clients are guys who are working through a fitness journey, whether that's to lose fat or to build muscle, while they're simultaneously working with me on their style. Because a lot of times, as you're working on just especially losing fat, and again, the more you have to lose, the harder it gets, where you can go months and months and months without feeling like you're seeing any progress. The scale may change a little bit, but what you see in the mirror may not change very much. And it can be really discouraging, because it can feel like you're not actually making any progress. I might sneeze. Wait. Yep. Excuse me. It can feel really discouraging, because you can feel that way, like you're not seeing anything. And so often it feels that way because your clothes don't reflect the changes that you're actually making. My own experience coming from the other end is that I had to replace my wardrobe every time I gained about 20 to 25 pounds. And this has been my experience with hundreds of guys that have gone through working with me and have gone from dropping weight, is that you can drop 30 pounds and your clothes won't fit any differently on you from just kind of that immediate, this is how I catch myself in the mirror, especially because you're so used to seeing that reflection in the mirror that you don't even consciously pay attention to it. But if you drop 20 pounds, and maybe you've got 60 to go or 160 to go, but if you drop 20 pounds and then you buy new clothes that reflect that change and they fit you a little bit better, there's now a pattern disrupt. So when you see yourself in the mirror, you see yourself as somebody who looks better. You see yourself as somebody who has made progress, that isn't just spinning his wheels, that isn't just talking the talk, but is actually making the progress that he wants to. And then you do it again as you drop another 20 pounds. And you're not spending a ton of money, because you don't need to buy really nice, expensive wardrobes, because you know that you're going to be replacing them as you go. But as you get closer and closer to that target weight, it starts to feel exactly, it's progressive overload with your clothing. And as you get closer and closer to that target weight, then the more confident you're going to feel and the better you're going to look in your stuff. And here's where it gets really cool, is that you can use that intermediate period of, I know that I'm only going to wear this stuff for a few months, to not only buy cheap stuff, but to really even kind of experiment with stuff. Maybe you go a little bit more aggressive. Maybe you go a little bit more safe. Maybe you go more formal, or we go more rugged, or we play with other things. This is one of my favorite things about working with guys that are in their weight loss journeys. We have a lot more elbow room to be able to experiment and try some things. And then when you get to what your target weight is, you've put in so many reps of figuring out what you like and what you don't like that you can really reward yourself by getting to a wardrobe that you can invest good money in, and you know that you're going to love it because you've bought cheap versions of it and you love how it looks. And then you trick yourself into maintaining that weight or maintaining that physique because, freak, I just spent all this money on this great wardrobe and I look awesome and I feel awesome. I'm not going to dump all this by just falling back into my old habits. And so you get this synergy between what you're doing with your style and what you're doing with your physique. And as you improve each of them at the same time, they both improve exponentially more than they would if they were doing it on their own. And so this is why, whether you're working with me or not, I don't want you guys, whether you feel like you've got 5 pounds to lose or anything more than that, I don't want you to feel like you have to wait until you get to whatever your target physique is before it's worth it to start thinking about and experimenting with and investing in your style. Because the sooner you start doing it, the easier time you're going to have, the more reinforced you're going to feel in the fact that you're actually making the kind of changes that you want to make, and the better your progress is going to be. And then what's really cool is that it doesn't stop there, because you get addicted to that self-development. You recognize how much better you feel because, hey, I got my physique dialed, I got my style dialed, and then it moves to maybe it's your finances, or maybe it's your dating life, or maybe it's, you learn to, maybe you start studying math again. Whatever it is that you decide you want to start to tackle, you've got this momentum that is going for you. And it's not just domain dependent of, well, yeah, I mean, I got in better shape or I got my style better, but that's the only thing that I can really fix is this one thing. You've now learned that you can improve yourself in multiple ways. And so it makes it easier and easier to expand that out and continue to improve yourself in even more ways. So if that's what I want to be the biggest takeaway for you guys. Whatever the style is that you arrive at, what I want it to be is something that reinforces to you that you can do more, that you can become better, and that even when you get your physique dialed, even when you get your style dialed, that's just the beginning of getting these other things going. And I want you to keep going, and I want you to keep making progress on that. Okay, guys. So that's what I had planned to cover for you today. Real quick, if you want help with this, if you want help figuring out what your style is, if you want help figuring out how to pace this and do this the right way, honestly, even if you want help figuring out how to tackle your nutrition or your strength training or anything, because I'm actually partnering up with the guys from Barbell Logic, where we're doing kind of a combined coaching thing. So if you want help with this, I may be a good fit for you. I may not. And so what I encourage you to do is click on that link that I just popped into the chat, schedule a 20-minute call with me. It's with me. It's not with some sales guy or something else. And I want to talk to you guys and see if I can help you out. And if I can, we'll talk about how to do that. And if not, then I'll point you towards somebody else who can be a better fit. So click on that and schedule something. But we've got some time. Let's open it up. I want to be able to answer questions. So just start typing questions in the chat. If I need more context, I'm going to ask you to unmute so that I can pull you up and we can talk a little bit further about how I can help you get to a good conclusion on this. But yeah, I mean, we've got a little bit of time. So how can I help make this more beneficial, more helpful, and more applicable for you guys? So yeah, start typing those in the chat for me. I'm going to take a drink while you're doing that.
Hey, Tanner, can I give you a shout out?
Please, Rick. I'd love to hear it, man.
Hey, so guys, I did exactly that. I followed the link. I scheduled an appointment with him. I paid for the training that he has. It's been huge. I mean, yeah, I'm down 40 pounds from where I was at the beginning of the year, and I got another 40 to go. And like he said, I wasn't buying new stuff, and I'm getting ready for a football game. But everything he said is so spot on. I mean, yesterday I was looking at shirts in my closet, and like he was talking about, I was like, these corners of my shoulders way down here, and not out. Stuff that I had in my closet that I was waiting till I lost weight still fits me wrong, and it's out. Or doesn't look right. When I went through the training to figure out what colors and what shapes fit me best, they fit me, don't look good on me now. And they're out.
I love it. I love it. And that's what's so fun is I get to see you have the enthusiasm that you do, and to see how, because I mean, Rick's been on a lot of the calls that we do in the group component of the coaching, and to get to hear the real life application for this for you. You get it, that it's so much more than just that I look good. You see how it affects your business, how it affects your marriage, how it affects so many other things. And that's the real power in all of this. So thank you. Thanks. I love that. I love that you're still enjoying every minute of it. Okay, let's start breaking these down.
I speak more confidently.
Right?
For some reason, people are like, man, you're more confident than you were before.
Because your whole sense of self changes. Your whole self-perception changes. And that's the real power in all of this. Yep. Awesome. Okay, let's start going through these. All right, Adam, shirts are always a challenge with the gut. Any ideas on shirts that build up the shoulders to help create that taper? Adam, unmute for me real quick. You do not have to tell me this, especially because this will, I'll post this on YouTube, so I'll respect privacy. But if you want to give me an idea, are we looking at like 5 to 10 pounds extra weight, or like quite a bit of extra weight on the gut? I'd like to know a little bit more, just so I can help answer that a little deeper.
I would say quite a bit for sure.
Okay, cool. So the best company that I've seen do this has actually been like their major marketing their major marketing approach is Fresh Clean Tees. Have you heard of these guys? Have they got you on the Instagram algorithm or anything yet?
Them and Built.
Okay.
I have Built shirts that I like.
Yep. Awesome. And are you asking mostly for t-shirts, or are you looking for button-up shirts too?
I guess anything. I spend a lot of time on webcams for work.
Okay.
So you know what's seen of me is mostly like chest level up.
Okay.
And I've seen people that can pull off shirts that have, I don't know, that build up the neck and shoulders area.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like that could help create that illusion.
Awesome. Okay. So getting your fit dialed is a really good way to do it. So yeah, I would look at Built and Fresh Clean Tees. Another thing that really helps with this when we're talking about more casual shirts is you can do a Henley, which basically is like a polo, but it doesn't have the collar. And by having that placket there and having more of your neck exposed, it creates a little mini V, and it can often make your chest look a little bit bigger that way. So that helps. And then when you're wearing button-up shirts, make sure that the collars stand up really well. The best way to do this is actually with button-down collars, because if they stand up against your neck really well, then again, what it creates is a little bit more of that V taper. And when you're wearing a button-up shirt, leave the top 2 buttons undone instead of just the single one, because the deeper we can make that V, and obviously we're not going into like full-on like Sicilian mafia territory where we've got all that popping out, but top 2 buttons, leave those undone. No visible undershirt, because the more of that V we can show off, the more visually that's going to be created, especially within the limited context of seeing somebody on Zoom, like how we're seeing each other now, where it's just that kind of mid chest up. Does that help? Yes, I'm going to assume yes.
Yes,
okay.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right, Ben, this is the most helpful message I've ever heard. Oh, awesome. And I've sunk so much time into reading it, how to dress a big guy. Okay, dude, I love that. I'm really glad that this is helpful for you, man. Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that, because I know that this is something that we can be so self-conscious about. Okay, Adam, going back to this idea of slim, not skinny jeans, better. Okay. Here's the hardest thing about this, you guys, it's so frustrating. I actually had a client that was in town yesterday when we were shopping, and there is no definitive like slim versus skinny versus straight versus baggy. They're all super nebulous terms. Okay. What I will typically say is that if you carry most of your weight in your love handles or in your seat, you're going to be better off with slim stuff. But if you carry most of it in your thighs, then straight is going to be better, because you don't want too aggressive a taper between where your thighs are and then down into your knees, into your ankles. And so a straight that has a little bit less of a taper will be better for you, but you still don't want to get into baggy territory, because again, baggy, you get the association of baggy is sloppy, and you don't want to be the guy that's both big and sloppy, because you're doubling down on the problem there. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. That helps on that one too.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. Jeffrey, thanks for a great presentation. You're welcome. What brands do you recommend for bigger guys, especially so much big guy clothes are never tapered to the waist or legs? Okay, best recommendation on this is going to be Barbell Apparel for pants. They're actually built for guys. Their kind of main marketing demographic is guys that are really big in like powerlifting and bodybuilding. So they got really massive thighs and big glutes and all of that, but it also works really well for big guys. They, however, tend to skew really skinny. And so go with their version of the straight cut as opposed to their slim to get something that looks relatively normal. And also just a heads up that their, all of their stuff comes unhemmed, or no, sorry, it does come hemmed, but it all comes at a 34 length. You can buy different waist sizes, but it's all a 34-inch length. And so unless you're pretty tall, you're just going to have to get it tailored. And the nice thing is then you can get it tailored to exactly the length that you want. Maybe you're 31 and most other brands will be at like a 30 versus a 32. You can get it tailored right to where you want it to be, but don't just buy them and have them taper really well and leave them too long, because that's going to just create more of that sloppiness again. But I would say for both jeans and chinos, Barbell Apparel is the best brand I can recommend for you guys with that. Okay, is high contrast dangerous because it shows your weight? Bobby, let's have you unmute. I want to understand that question better.
Sure. I usually go with a standard neutral type pants. And then like today I can go with a navy blue, or I also have some Easter egg blue or green polos. Do the brighter colors really just say, look at the fat guy?
They don't necessarily say look at the...
or can we go neutral on neutral is better, to quote, hide that.
Okay, so this is where we need to factor in things like your tribe and your personal taste, because signals are going to be a little bit different. You know, if you're a bigger guy that is, I don't know, pledging at a frat and you're part of like that whole WASP crowd, then you're going to want to wear brighter colors because that's what's appropriate there. Whereas if you work a blue collar business and you want more of that kind of like physical masculinity and a little bit of an edge that comes that way, then we want to factor that in. And so it's not necessarily that it's because it draws attention and says, look at the fat guy, but it's because most of the time when we see bigger guys in brighter colors, they're not serious men. They're just goofy guys. That's kind of the general stereotype. So again, factor in what your particular tribal associations with that are. And if that broad stereotype doesn't apply to you, then throw it out and go with what does apply to you. But for the most part, you get guys that are the big guys, that are the goofy guys, as opposed to the kind of serious, a little bit more physically masculine, a little bit, you want a little bit of edge to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if you're in your 50s and, you're not going to be that, 29, 30-ish holding on to that social scene, and you want to be seen more as a leader at work and ready to take that next step up.
Yep.
Burn the Easter egg.
Yep. Burn the Easter egg. Yep. No more safe, fun, goofy colors. It's too boyish and it's too playing it safe, too goofy. Go with darker colors or neutrals. Yeah. And then that'll change things quite a bit for you. Yep.
Got it. Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay. If the rugged archetype is generally better for big guys, do you recommend leaning more into the refined aesthetic if you have to dress up for work? I mix jeans and sport. Yes. Okay. Ben, I would still do, unless you're doing like full suiting, then I would still do a good mix of like the refined and the rugged, where you're doing textured sport coats. You're doing button-up shirts that are a little bit more casual, like they have the button-down collar and the visible placket, and they have more texture to them. And then you're doing jeans with maybe some boots. So it's that good kind of balance between the two, as opposed.
What I'm wearing right now. Perfect.
That's what you got on right now. Awesome. Good. You're crushing it. So just get the fit dialed and you'll be set.
All right.
But,
Awesome.
but when you do go into full on suiting, unless you're actually in a blue collar world or you're super like highly skewed rugged, then I wouldn't do, rugged, like I'm only doing flannel suits or I'm only doing really textured stuff that way. I would still go all the way refined and play, but again, stick with darker colors, stick with charcoal versus that mid gray, stick with a dark navy versus a mid blue, that kind of stuff, so that we can play with things that way. Yeah.
Thanks,
by the way, I can see you on the screen. Undo one more button on your collar. I love it. Okay. All right. Okay. Would you be willing to rate how this fit works? Rich, you know what? I'm going to do you. Yeah, let's do it. Let's have you, where are you? I'm going to find you so that I can wait. I lost you. I had you for a second and I found you. Okay. I'm only doing this with Rich because he's in one of my other groups and I can trust him. So I'm going to make Rich a co-host so that you can share your screen. And then I want to take a look at what you've got.
Yeah, so appreciate it, Tanner. So this is a trip here I did. Everybody see that?
Nope.
Share. Okay,
There we go.
There we go. Okay,
It's coming up. Hold on. There we go. Okay.
Okay, I'm on the left. I was just fact out in southern Utah last weekend. So
Yep.
meeting with one of the guys in the group. So here we are in Zion National Park. Working on it. I've got a belly, working on it. I've got the shoulders. Working on the Henleys, trying to make the short shorter, right? Not so baggy. Is that on the right path, Tanner?
Yeah, you're off to a good start here.
Okay.
A couple things that I would recommend is what's the brand on the Henley here?
Where did I get that from? I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Here's one of the things that's hard about just getting particular clothes is every company, their pattern is different. And so what this is probably something, because the problem is that the sleeves are too long and they're a little bit too baggy, but it's already getting a little bit too snug in the chest and then down through the waist, right? And so going down a size is going to exacerbate the problem in the torso, even though it's going to fix the problem in the arms. And going up a size is going to exacerbate the problem in the arms, even though it's going to fix the problem in the torso. So you need to find another brand that makes things that have a taper that's going to be more consistent with what your build is. So I would say for you, remind me how tall you are and what you weigh.
I 5'8", about 225 right now.
Okay, so I would say
I want to get down about the 175, 180.
Awesome. So I would say pick up something from Buck Mason, a Henley from them, or from Kino Clothing. Buck Mason are my favorite as far as just the material and stuff like that. And then Kino Clothing, I actually helped Greg O'Gallagher design that clothing line, and we were very specifically like, let's get it nice and snug in the shoulders and the arms, and then get a really good drape down through the waist and the stomach. And so try either one of those.
What was the second one? What was the
Kino
second
Clothing, Kino. Kino Clothing.
Got it. Okay.
Because those are going to be better bets as far as this isn't a sizing issue. This is just the company didn't make the right taper for you kind of issue.
Gotcha.
Make
Okay.
sense?
Makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Yep. You're welcome. Okay. Now let's go back to here. Okay. We got Rich. All right. Adam, are Chelsea boots good, or does that look cute? Okay. Chelsea boots are good, but you got to be careful because a lot of Chelsea boots, the last, which is basically like the shape of the boots themselves, get really pointed and they get really aggressive, and you don't want to look dainty. You also don't want to make your feet look like they're big and clownish. And so what you will want to do is find Chelsea boots that have a little bit more of a round toe or a little bit of a chunkier last to them, which for the most part means you're going to be better off if you stick with British brands. Like Alden is a really good one, as opposed to doing more Italian brands or anything that's super kind of like up and coming. So yeah, as long as it's got a good like rounder toe box, then it'll work for you being a bigger guy. Yep. Okay, let's see. Justin, as a bigger guy with a rugged archetype, would you recommend to stay away from cuffed pant bottoms? Okay, Justin, let's talk about that. So let's have you unmute.
Yeah, with the cuff pant bottoms, I guess it might just be me being a little more that's out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
But I feel like as a bigger guy, the cuff pant bottoms, I don't know, make your legs look thinner and your upper torso look bigger.
Okay. Are you talking about jeans or more like a pair of flannel trousers or all of it? What's your association here?
Both. More jeans.
Okay. And when they're cuffed, are they coming up so that you're actually showing some ankle, or are they still kind of sitting right on top of the shoe, or maybe even breaking a little bit?
Maybe even breaking a little bit, probably.
Okay. Then that's probably just going to be more of a personal association and kind of a comfort thing for you, where it's there's an unfamiliarity to it, or even like a past association. Because for the most part, when you look at, in fact, here, let's pull this guy up again. Let's see. We were. Oh, my journalism teacher would kill me. This is so much dead air. Okay, let's find this guy. Here's our good guy. Okay, let's see. Clear ink. Okay. So like this, how does that look to you?
That's probably a little bit lower than what I would see. Probably, I guess what it ends up looking like on me would be a mix between this guy and the middle guy.
Okay. Because
Somewhere
this
right in
is
the middle.
right. And this guy's obviously like into the really rakish kind of trendy territory.
Yep.
This guy, these are a little bit too long, where not only is it breaking here, let me show you. Not only, there we go, is it breaking like all of this down here where we're getting breaks multiple times, but it's even starting to break up here against the knee. And so ideally, you would want this to be a cleaner drape and then still have this little bit of breakdown here, and he would be really good. And so it has a lot more to do with how much you're actually cuffing them or the way that they're hemmed or anything, as opposed to a cuff works or a cuff doesn't work. So it's, yeah, it's more about how much you're actually affecting the fit. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
it does.
Awesome. Good question. Okay. Let's see. From Alex. Oh, no, wait, we got Jeffrey first. Okay. How can we make the tucked in look work? Some places have dress codes that require it. Also sucks for concealed carry. Okay. Jeffrey, let me have you unmute. Are you at the point where you basically have to like wear stuff and it's under a belly, or it has to come up over a belly, or are you kind of in between where it can go either way?
I'm not sure I follow what the question is. Can you
So
just say it in a different way?
Yeah. So here, let me draw it in like most crude, offensive way possible, right? Because I'm a terrible artist. You get guys who will look at it from like a profile perspective. So let's say we've got your pants here, and guys that have this like big belly that hangs over. And so you have to like either have it under, or the pants have to be cut in a way that it comes up around it. Or
no, I'm just on the hips, like
okay.
regular.
Okay.
I'm not going around the
awesome.
full circumference.
Okay, good. I'm glad you could pick up what I was putting down.
Yeah,
with that
sorry about
drawing. Okay, so what's the frustration for you as far as is it a comfort thing? Is it an aesthetic thing? What's the hang up on this for you?
Well, it's both, because first of all, you can't pull up any catalog or website where the models are actually, tucking in their shirts.
Right.
There's almost nothing. It's always out. And so that's like telling me that the best way of wearing almost every clothing is out. That is the standard.
Gotcha.
On top of that, most guys, especially past 35 plus, no matter how hard you work, you're going to have a little bit around the middle, and it's just highlighting the worst aspects of your body. Unless you're wearing a sport coat, you're basically highlighting this, spare tire. And I just don't understand why this sticks. And if it does stick and there's nothing much we could do about it, do you blouse it out, or do you not try to hide it? Because like I throw back to what you just said before, like don't be in denial, like don't try to hide it. Like how do you make that tucked in polo or that tucked in button down work?
Yeah, it sucks because we kind of live in a crappy time with this, where if you go back to like the late 80s, early, even to the mid 90s. And then same thing, you go back to the late 40s and the early 50s, and drape was something that was really appreciated. So even if you had a shirt tucked in, there was a lot of drape, and it didn't matter how you were built. And so if you had a little bit of extra weight, it would just naturally hide. Whereas now, most of the stuff we're wearing is either still a holdout from the late 90s, mid 2000s that's just baggy and sloppy and ugly, or it's slimmer. And then there's really not a lot of mercy when it comes to where your belly is, right? So you could blouse it out a little bit. And again, this is where having a little bit of drape, a little bit of taper is good. It does not have to be saran wrap tied on you. Wearing layers definitely helps in this regard, where you throw on a sport coat, or you throw on a field jacket, or you throw on a flannel shirt over a t-shirt. And especially going into this time of year, that makes it a lot easier. Another thing that actually helps with this is to go from a low rise to a mid rise on your pants, so that you can even tuck a little bit of that in to where your pants fit. So it's actually in the pants as opposed to just being hidden by the shirt. And that can kind of help play with that too. But then you're right, you get into this territory of like, how does this affect conceal carry? And because well, you don't have to answer this either, because again, I know. But do you carry appendix? Or are you at like your 6 o'clock, your 5 o'clock? What's your preference there?
It's usually inside the waistband at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
My preferred, even though I know everyone's appendix now. For some reason, that caught on like wildfire in the last 3 years. I'm not sure what happened with that, but
right.
yeah.
Dude,
So
it's so easy to
I'm-
draw from there. I love it. Anyway. Okay. So you're usually at your 4.
You know what? You don't have to give me concealed carry tips. I mean, I don't want to take up too much
No,
time.
no, no,
I'm
you're
just
good.
trying to say,
No, I'm
you
just
know,
thinking
it just sucks in general.
it does.
that
It
there's
does.
so many things going against you. And if you want to layer, that's great. But if it's July,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
if it's July and you're wearing stuff that's untucked, I mean, you shouldn't really be having anything that's tucked in July anyway, unless you're going to something that's more formal. So again, it's wearing button-up shirts, like short sleeve button-up shirts, or t-shirts or something that they have some drape to them, but they're not baggy and boxy like the Adam Sandler version of it was.
all right. So it's really comes down to how the shirt drapes
Yep.
is really the most important thing.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's how you buy what you buy, not how you wear. So to
Yeah.
speak.
Totally.
All right, cool.
Yep. Awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Alex, this is going to be our last one. And then actually, while I'm answering this one, I'm going to pop this link in here again real quick for you guys, because I would love to see if I can help you. Actually, Alex is another one of the guys that I'm working with right now, which is fun. Okay. Is there any merit to having different sections in your wardrobe to accommodate your physique at different sizes? Yeah, because Alex, you kind of do a bulk and a cut and a bulk and a cut, right? Depending on the season.
Yeah, that's right. So, the fluctuation hopefully wouldn't be more than, 15 to 20 pounds, but it sounds like that meets your threshold for where, yeah, you might need to switch out to different clothing.
Yeah. And are you pretty seasonal about it? Are you kind of a bulk in the winter and cut in the summer type of thing?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay. So that's already naturally going to lend itself to separate wardrobes anyway. You're going to be wearing lighter weight materials and shorts and stuff like that in the summer. And then you're going to be into heavier weight materials, flannels, that, layers and all of that in the winter. So I'd say, yeah, if you know that there's going to be this kind of like constant variation with even some escalation that happens there over time, then yeah, that's totally worth it. I wouldn't get caught in this is my size and I have to wear this all the time type of mindset. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
You're welcome. Awesome. Okay. Well, guys, thank you very much for coming on and hanging out with me tonight. I loved getting to do this one. This is one that I know can be a little bit uncomfortable, but there's a lot of, I hate this word. It's so overused in the wrong ways, but it's applicable here. There's a lot of empowerment in learning how to do this the right way for you guys. And so I hope that I hope this has been helpful. I hope that this has given you guys some good ideas on how you can start to boost this and how you can start to take advantage of this, and also get more of that synergy as you work on your physique aspect of it as well. So thanks for coming on and hanging out with me again. I would love to be able to talk to you guys to see if I can help you out. So click on that link. And then I will get this up on YouTube so you guys can catch the replay, and we'll do that in the next few days. But I'm going to go watch my son's football game. Have a great evening, you guys. And I will see you on the internet soon. So night, guys.